Hello there, it's Zella, and welcome to my first social commentary. Ooh. So, I've been debating over the past week on what I want my first commentary to be about. There are obviously a whole slew of topics that I could have chosen from, anywhere from religion, politics, gender, race. Those are pretty big topics. Instead, I decided to start kind of small. Well, not really. In the end, it is the biggest of all topics, but it's kind of, I guess, minute in magnitude of what we consider as importance. I am starting with the topic of opinions and ideas. Now, obviously, this is not a topic that really needs defining, if that makes sense, because really, opinions, it's way someone views something and their personal expression of how they feel that issue should, be put out there, I guess. So that's what I'm going to be talking about, but I'm going to be talking more about the human aspect of it than just what we consider to be, you're entitled to your opinion. So, have you ever had someone in your life who you've tried to talk with about an issue, and what they do is they're just like, well, I'm not interested in that, or they're like, well, I think completely different than you, and therefore nothing you say matters, and we're done. So, that's kind of the base of what I think American society has come down to, is that we just don't care about what anyone else says. And that's really kind of a broken concept, and I can explain more about that in a few minutes. But starting off, what forms an opinion is kind of, it's a process that our brain goes through. We receive information about something, and based upon our culture, our family, our religion, our background, and schooling, education, all of those things go into this process where our brain takes that information and puts it into this fedora, into our brain, and we come up with a different result than what was put in. This is a very unique. I don't think it's unique to humans, but it's why we have such a diverse population with so many different ideas, is because whenever someone takes something in, they get something different out, and it's because of all the differences in our growing up and how we live, where we live, who we live with. All those things contribute to making new opinions, and that's really why opinions are so important, is because there's so many of them, but they make us human. If we didn't have opinions, we basically would be, we'd be one node. We'd be mononoded. Wait, that's not a word. We'd be, one idea. That's how it's done. You can't change that, and that's not true. We have very different ideas about how things should be done in our society, in our political system, in pretty much every aspect of our lives. So if we were just to all have the same ideas, we basically would be robots. We wouldn't, that's just what we'd be. But opinions are really, when you're talking about opinions, it's kind of difficult to understand why they're important to talk about, because on a small level, on the smallest level, an opinion, there's really small opinions on very minute things that don't really matter. Like, say, my dog is barking. I like cats better than dogs. That's an opinion, right? No one's really going to chase after you based on that opinion. I will be right back. And I am back. The absolute beauty of having a dog who needs to use the bathroom at 1 a.m. So, opinions can be broken down into basically two groups. We have opinions about smaller things, like I like cats better than dogs, or my favorite color is blue, or I don't particularly like lobster. Those those are opinions that no one's going to chase after you for. They're not, they're not going to condemn you for them. They're not going to say, "Oh, you're a horrible person. I can't associate with you." Usually, if they do, there's probably something wrong, I guess. But those are the smaller ones, what I call the micro opinions. Not they're basically the same thing, but they're about issues that we don't particularly deem as socially important, I guess. But on the bigger level, there are macro issues such as religion, race, politics, gender, sexuality, all those things. Those are much bigger issues that we concern ourselves with more often than we really think about. Even subconsciously, we are in that pool of issues. Whether we're talking about it or we're just in society, because it is society itself. So those are the two basic. I guess that's the macro version, is the big ones. It's just kind of something I made up. Uh, it doesn't really hold any bearing, but I guess the biggest point about opinions is that it is human intuition, human, I guess, a human idea is to believe that our opinions are the most important or reign supreme or have more value. This is kind of what has broken our society, really, over the course of. It hasn't broken it, but it's made it hard to progress, and I'll explain that in a minute. But we live in such a huge world, and not every opinion can match up with all the other ones. And when we reach someone who has an opinion that goes against ours, we tend to push that person aside, or in worst case scenarios, directly condone that person for having that particular opinion or belief. That's kind of a human attitude towards opinions that aren't directly our own. And what this does over time is it creates separate groups within society, such as religious churches, activist groups, even like your PTA, parent teacher associate, whatever it's called. That's a group that's based on certain political opinions that want to get certain things done. And while these can be great for making progress, they oppose with each other sometimes, and that can cause tension. And I guess the greatest injustice that we can do to an opinion is to discard it as useless. And we tend to do that more often than we think. You hear an opinion that you think is so far out there that it can't really be an opinion. It's just something that someone made up just for the heck of it, and we just throw it away. And that's kind of an injustice, because no person's opinion is more valuable than each other's. We all have the same value as far as our opinions go. And the reason being is that even though there's public opinion, which is a conglomeration of what we deem as the most popular of all opinions, that's not necessarily always right. We've seen that in 150 years ago of slavery. We've deemed that that's not right now, but back in the time it was popularly acceptable. And no one really said much about it at the time, except for those that wanted to end slavery. It has a name. But that's in the past. Opinions change over time. Public opinion changes over time, But I guess what I'm trying to say is that when we're trying to work through opinions to determine what's going to be public opinion or what's going to find its way into public policy, we kind of have a challenge in front of us because we have so many different opinions. Which one is, I guess, right? And as some people like to think that might makes right, so people with the most money make the opinion. That's really not the case most of the time. They have a greater influence than the average person, but a larger group of individuals will have more power than just a person with a lot of money, usually. So in order to, I guess, work through these opinions, we have to be able to sit down and talk. It's really simple, but talking involves two things. It involves one, talking, and two, listening. It's a two-way process. We can't just say, well, what I'm saying is important, but what you're saying is not important. So we're going to ignore that and just go with my ideas, because that is wrong. First of all, it's just wrong as it's very inconsiderate of other people's opinions, and two, you may ignore opinions that may favor society or whatever the issue is at that table, I guess. We have to be willing, even opposing groups that can't stand each other must be willing to take the time to listen and process what other people are saying, because if you don't, what you're saying doesn't matter. That's not actually how it works in politics. It's normally the public opinion is the right opinion, and other opinions kind of get pushed to the side. Occasionally, there's a Supreme Court case or something where we bring an opinion of someone else into the forefront. It's not very common because the public likes its opinion, and that changes over time, but it's not easy to change. Trust me. We can see, because slavery existed for hundreds of years. Actually, it's existed for thousands of years, but and it still exists today, but not in what we considered, I guess, Western countries. I just talked a whole bunch. My throat is starting to hurt, and I've run to the end of my sheet here, which I used to jot down some notes. So I guess what I'm trying to say is that in order for our political system to even begin to advance, to make progress in society, we need to start by listening to I guess, both what constitutes our nation and outside. We're becoming more and more global. The world is actually becoming smaller as our technology develops, and opinions are all over the place now. Like, public opinion isn't the only thing anymore. There's millions upon millions that are just out there on the internet that you can search for a blog, and suddenly there will be an opinion completely different from yours. So, I guess that's what I'm trying to get at. We need to begin talking, which is a two-way process. It's not one way; it's two ways, and it's the beauty of an opinion, and kind of my concern about opinions today is that we think that, we're entitled to our own opinions, and everything else is just out the window. And that's not how you make progress. It's really not. There needs to be cooperation, and there needs to be some giving on both sides of an opposing argument. So that was my first social commentary. I hope you enjoyed it. I am going to try to edit this, and hopefully it actually saved. So I will catch you later, and hopefully I'll get my software working so I can make some LPs again, because it broke for me, and that's not very good. So I will see you soon, and bye.